Welcome to Take Off Your Shoes. My name is Reverend Marie Duquette. I'm an ordained minister in the Lutheran tradition, and I believe that where my story, your story, and God's story meet, there is holy ground. The Holy Gospel according to John, the 10th chapter. At that time, the festival of the dedication took place in Jerusalem. It was winter. Jesus was walking in the temple in the portico of Solomon. So the Jews gathered around him and said to him, "How long will you keep us in suspense? If you are the Messiah, tell us plainly." Jesus answered, "I have told you, and you do not believe me. The works that I do in my Father's name testify to me, but you do not believe because you do not belong to my sheep. My sheep hear my voice. I know them, and they follow me. I give them eternal life, and they will never perish. No one will snatch them out of my hand. What my Father has given me is greater than all else, and no one can snatch it out of the Father's hand. The Father and I are one." The Gospel of the Lord. This week, the world celebrated the news that Pope Leo XIV would succeed Pope Francis to lead the Roman Catholic Church and provide inspiration and moral guidance to Christians the world over. And today, we celebrate Good Shepherd Sunday, a day that was originated by Pope Paul VI in 1964. In 1964, Pope Paul VI was dismayed because men weren't going to be priests and women weren't going into the convent. And how would the good news be shared if the numbers of these two vocations continued to dwindle? So this Sunday after Easter became Good Shepherd Sunday, and in the Roman Catholic tradition, also Vocation Sunday. A day in which the church prays for people to heed the voice of God and enter into seminaries and convents and religious orders to be trained to be God's servants in the world who are charged with bringing the gospel to congregations and communities. Also, the number of Catholic priests in the United States has significantly declined since 1965. From nearly 60,000 in 1965, the number dropped to 37,500 in 2015. So that plan worked well. It begs the question, if it was God's voice that inspired Pope Paul VI to create this Good Shepherd Sunday, why does it seem like the goal that Pope Paul had in mind hasn't been accomplished? Could it be that Pope Paul's idea of what might be accomplished in creating Good Shepherd Sunday differed from God's? Could it be that focusing on Jesus as the Good Shepherd was less about raising up new priests and more about comforting the faithful and reminding them that God is still with them, still guiding them, still speaking? While Psalm 23 is possibly the most well-known piece of scripture around the world, in part because it was and is read at funerals, it is also so popular that people write parodies about it. Lots of them. Since we are almost to graduation, I want to read you one parody written through the lens of a student. But anyone who can remember what it was like to turn in your last test, or finish your last project, or write your last paper can probably identify with this one. A student writes, "The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not flunk. He keepeth me from lying down when I should be studying. He leadeth me beside the water cooler for a study break." Again, "He restoreth my faith in study guides. He leads me to better study habits for my grades' sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of borderline grades, I will not have a nervous breakdown, for thou art with me. My prayers and my friends, they comfort me. Thou givest me answers in moments of blankness. Thou anointest my head with understanding. My test paper runneth over with questions I recognize. Surely passing grades and flying colors shall follow me all the days of my examinations, and I shall not have to dwell in this school forever. Ever. But let's turn now to this question. How do we hear, and how do we know that we are hearing the voice of the Good Shepherd, the voice of God leading us? Good Shepherd Sunday does not always hit on Mother's Day. But as I was preparing this sermon, I thought, wow, this could be a fun game. Was it Jesus or was it your mother? Take off your shoes. Also God. Exodus 3. Follow me. Don't you be going out alone. You take someone with you. Come have breakfast. And so you see, it's not that far of a stretch to say that sometimes Jesus sounds a little bit like your mother. God's first language is silence. Everything else is a poor translation. So says Thomas Keating, known for developing and teaching centering prayer, which is a form of prayer in which one sits in silence for anywhere from 20 minutes to weeks. It reminds us that prayer is much more than us asking for things for God. Prayer is also listening for God's guidance. It is often in the practice of listening for God that we receive spiritual direction, but that direction is not always audible. Here are some ways you can tell if what you hear, audibly or within you, is the voice of God. When God asks you to do something, it is rarely something you really want to do. Beginning a new ministry, studying for a new vocation, going to seminary, forgiving yourself. There are 2 occasions in my life where I believe I heard the voice of God unmistakably. And one of them came when I was driving alone in a car in a particularly rough patch of life. And what I heard was, "Did you really think that I would abandon you?" If I could have predicted at the time that God was going to speak to me, that would not be what I expected God to say. And boy, am I glad I heard it. God's words are always consistent with who we know God to be. This differentiates God from, say, cult leaders. If God is telling you to harm and cause violence, you can be sure that is not God who is talking, though many have gone forward to cause violence in the name of God. If it is God talking to you, what you hear can be and should be affirmed by other believers. The call process in the Lutheran Church from beginning to end, and in many other denominations as well, it begins with one person saying, "I think I might be called to seminary." Or it begins with someone's pastor saying, "I think you might be called to seminary." Or perhaps it's someone's grandmother that says it. But it doesn't stop there. That person begins to ask their friends and family and perhaps people at church with a bit of terror in their voice, "Do you think I might be called to seminary?" And people who know them and love them will say either, "Of course you are. That doesn't surprise me at all." Or, "I don't know. What makes you ask?" Or, "Let me think about that. Hey, Bana, do you think they're called to seminary?" And they ask more people. And so the three ways that you know is it is rarely something you want to do. God's words are always consistent with who we know God to be. Did you really think I would abandon you? And it is affirmed by other believers. The next part of the call process is that someone from the bishop's office is called to talk to this person who thinks they might be called into ministry. And then that person from the bishop's office arranges for a first retreat. And to that retreat, the new candidate for ministry has to bring letters from all different people in their life that says, I too see this in this person. And then every year of study after that, they have to continue going to different congregations to preach and to do ministry and get letters from those people who say, yes, we see this in you. And then after you take your final exam at seminary, you have to go before a whole panel of people who say, you do this well, you do this well, you don't do this well at all, but we're going to let this one slide. Just ask for help. And they decide if they see this in you. That is how a call takes place. But other ministries are affirmed this way as well. I am sure that when the Loaves and Fishes Warming Center was originally thought up, I am sure that the people who first thought of it immediately started talking to other people who either said, yeah, that's a good idea, or we don't need that, or that's a good idea, let me talk to some other people about it, and it grew and it grew and it grew. This is a solid way to know if what you hear or what you're inspired to do is of God. The other part is that it's not always audible. It's not always audible, but sometimes it is. And sometimes it comes in the voice of other people, of friends and family. It can even come in the voice of someone you thought was your enemy. They may not like the things you do in life, but they will say to you, I can't quite deny that I see God in you. So here's the test. If you think, or someone you know thinks, they might be getting called by God to do a particular ministry, to go into a particular form of study, which does not have to be the seminary, to take on a certain role in life, to start something new in their church. If they think that is so, here's the test. Try not to do it. Try not to do it. I'm not proud of this, but I dropped out of seminary 3 times. Here I am. Right? Try not to do it. If it is of God, it will stay with you. And someday you'll decide it's easier to just do it than to keep trying to walk away. The gift, whether you are certain you hear God's voice or not, is in your listening. God's voice might come through another person. It might come in silence. It might come in a dream or a vision. But the gift is in the listening. The listening alone connects us to one another and to God. And this is important because it is our human tendency to assume that God only contacts us when we are needed for a mission or ministry on earth. But that too is not who God is. A good shepherd cares for the sheep. The sheep rarely care for the shepherd. Yet people stack up good deeds as if God needs us, which may be true in that God works through people and good deeds show love to those in need. This is part of being faithful. Good deeds are one way of acknowledging all that God has done for us, but it is never, if you grant me this, God, then I will do this. It is always, because you have done great things, God. I love you and I love your people. It is gratitude for what God has done that moves us more deeply into love. And here is the part we often forget, the part that is even more true than God needing us. The truth is, we need God. We need God to guide us, to love us, to forgive us, to encourage us, because the things God calls us to are rarely easy, but they are holy. They do give our lives deeper meaning. They do give us a sense that what we do with our time here on earth matters and will matter long after we are gone. That even the smallest act of love can change someone's world. And in this knowing, we also know, in a way that we can't explain and we can't deny, that God is with us. Our Good Shepherd leads us beside still waters. Mercy and goodness pursue us all the days of our lives, and we shall live in the house of the Lord forever. Thank you for listening to Take Off Your Shoes. Let me send you out now with this blessing. May God give you the grace never to sell yourself short, grace to risk something big for something good, and grace to remember the world is now too dangerous for anything but the truth and too small for anything but love.
If you're still listening, she held your attention. Give her a thumbs up and subscribe. Watch the video on her YouTube channel. Search on YouTube for Take Off Your Shoes with Marie Duquette, Duquette.